blue. The Giants were on a 6-game win streak entering Sunday, but the Steelers quickly putting an end to that 24-14. Big Ben made sure everybody was eating. Ladarius Green, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell all showed up big. Meanwhile, Eli had his 12th interception of the season, tied for 5th in the league. Max Kellerman, I know, I feel you. Were we wrong to consider the Giants?
You all right, man? Huh? You all right?
What?
I mean, listen, I mean, we know that you we know you tried to call in sick, you know, but, you know, we pull rank on you collectively. We like, you don't get to hide. That's not what first take is. You don't hide. Take your time.
Who?
Take your time.
What happened?
Let me ask.
Yes.
Were we wrong to consider the Giants a serious threat in the NFC?
No, they are a serious threat, but they are fatally flawed as many, or seriously flawed as most teams in the NFL are.
Right.
In the Giants' case, it's the offensive line primarily. And you know, their defense has come around. They've spent a lot of money on it in the offseason. It's made a lot of strides and made stands when it's had to generally throughout the course of the season. And especially the safeties, but even the linebackers have been playing a lot better. You know, the middle is not so soft anymore. The front four and the corners have been good throughout the season, I think. And so that's good. And you know Eli can get it done when it counts, and they have tremendous receivers, but the offensive line is flawed. And so they have no running game. They have no elite back, but they also don't block for them well. And Eric Flowers, was their first-round draft pick, who some thought maybe that's the most talented guy in that draft, even if he's not the most finished product, is basically beaten on every play. I mean, he gets called for holding, and it turns what should have been a pass interference for Odell Beckham into a safety, 2 points, plus they get the ball. That was a key point in the game. But the Giants, even then, against the Steelers team that was playing better than they had recently, the Giants had tons of opportunities to win that game. Eli throws the pick in the red zone. Yeah. I mean, two of them, but the first one in particular was devastating. Just time and again throughout the course of that game, you got the sense that, like, this is still there for the Giants if they can put it together.
I never got that impression.
I didn't see that.
No, we didn't get that. No.
And they didn't. Well, listen, in the end, it's a 10-point game. Yeah. And just those plays that we just mentioned, the safety plus the pick, you start adding up the points, and there's the game.
Too, though. Let's not forget about that.
He did.
The point is, the Giants and the Steelers, both flawed teams, both teams with kind of the proverbial puncher's chance against even elite teams. And so the question simply is for the Giants, do they make it in? And I think they will.
Still in prime spot for a wild card.
You look at both matchups. I mean, let's just give Ben Roethlisberger a lot of credit. He plays well against Eli. It's a matchup that he looks forward to, obviously being in that same draft class. We hyped it up before the game started, and Ben played well. He's got more weapons on the outside, more weapons at the backfield. Their offensive line is not great, but they're okay. Defensive line is a question for Pittsburgh, and the tackling. But more for the Giants, yes, they're in prime position to make the wild card spot. They're in a prime position to make a run in the playoffs. The question I've always had with the Giants is, where's your run game? You talk about the offensive line. I think the offensive line has done a fairly decent job for Eli because he's only been sacked less than 15 to 16 times this year so far.
Getting rid of the ball quick. That's part of the plan.
Well, that's what that offense is all about. Remember when McAdoo was in Green Bay, that's what we see with Aaron Rodgers. Get the ball out of your hand quick and give your guys an opportunity to make things happen on the outside. So I look for the Giants more or less of being able to try to establish some type of run game, which they don't have. Jennings is not you say elite running back. You don't even need an elite running back. You need a guy who's going to hit the hole quick. To me, he's like taking extra steps in the hole, which now everyone collapses on him, where now you put pressure on Eli. So for me, more or less, it's about their running game, not so much their defense, because their defense is playing well.
You bring up Le'Veon Bell, give Eli a running back like that. Like, how much better is Ben
Eli still turns the ball over no matter who's
because he has Le'Veon Bell and Eli's got Jennings.
At the end of the day,
stop trying to he's trying to reach for a running back. I'm trying to reach for a running back. It's not going to help.
Let me also say,
this game does not hurt the Giants at the end of the day.
Let me also say
We're
this.
on to Dallas.
Excuse me. We'll hear from you in a second.
Oh.
Yeah.
Because we all know that you always got a lot to say about the Giants.
Really?
We'll certainly hear from you, Molly.
You got
Boy.
one right.
You understand what I'm saying? We all right.
Celebrate. Throw a party.
Excuse me.
Stephen A. picked a
That's
game
right. Today.
Yeah, today you did.
Today.
Yeah,
Today. I'm sorry. We'll hear tomorrow next week. You talk about today. It's Monday, right?
Let's go. Let's hear about your
Will you
Steelers.
stop bullying Stephen A. Smith?
Stephen A., guess what?
It's all right, Molly.
Your Steelers are all right. They're not real.
Let me say this to you. I do know this much. Le'Veon Bell showed up yesterday. Ladarius Green had a coming out party because Ben is targeting him. You can talk all the junk about the Steelers all you want to. They just smacked your Giants around. Let's stop that. Let's stop that. Secondly, and more importantly, I will openly confess because I have class. Bottom line is I'm a native New Yorker. If it wasn't for the Steelers, I'd be rooting for the Giants. So I'm not going to get into all too much
teams
or whatever. No, you don't have a team. You live in Connecticut. But the point is, we'll go there another day. All right. Now we'll go back to this game. Are the Giants a serious threat? No. You know why? And that hurts me to say this. Their running game is awful. Yeah. As you pointed out, their running game is awful. But here's the other portion. You can get to Odell. I love Odell Beckham. He's electrifying. But you get physical with him, and there were calls that were missed. Yeah. And he was justified in his frustration towards the referee, even though he wasn't wise in articulating them. The point is that he's a miniature dude. And they know, just like anybody else, he's a miniature dude who's a speedster and is electrifying with his talent. We got to smack him around. We got to rough him up. And it gets to him. And so if you are the New York Giants, let's put this in its proper perspective. You've got the second worst running attack in all of football. You've got an elite wide receiver who's significantly undersized. You got from a week-to-week basis, you got to hope that the officials see it, catch it, and give you favorable calls. And oh, by the way, you're in a division that's led by the Dallas Cowboys. You've got the Detroit Lions on a come-up because when we thought about the NFC, we thought about Green Bay and possibly Minnesota. Detroit's on a come-up. Right. We thought the South was about Atlanta. Now here comes Tampa. Yep. And so when you look at it from that perspective, all those things put the New York Giants in a world of trouble, and it's indicative of what we've seen from them 6 times in the last 7 years where they missed the playoffs. You know what's funny is when Odell made his little complaints about the referees, the games that he brought up about those same referees, that same crew, was the Washington Redskins. Josh Norman. Yeah, the Washington Redskins. You talked about the Carolina Panthers. That's right. Last year. Yeah, of last year. So it is something that gets into his mind mentally when it comes to physical play. Now, he's an outstanding receiver. When he catches the ball, he's dynamic with the ball in his hands. And that's what makes this team go in the passing game. But you can't help your quarterback if you're not running the football, especially in playoff play. It's about strong defense, an efficient quarterback, and running the football. I will ask this question to you, though. Because in my years of covering you with the Philadelphia Eagles, even though I always thought that Brian Westbrook was ultra-talented, right, a lot more often than not, it wasn't running the football. It was you dipping it to, dunking it to him and letting him make plays out of the backfield. He was catching passes. It wasn't downfield necessarily per se, but you just use him as a running back. And that's what I mean about the things that running backs bring to the table. It's not just running the football. Right. It's the dynamic of lining him up a receiver, running a screen play, whatever it may be. But also about Brian Westbrook, though. Brian Westbrook will get in the hole and get 3, 4, 5 yards to carry. And so that does a lot for you going on 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4. Yeah, it's good if your running back is fast. Yes, that is good. If your running back is fast, that helps. But let me just say about Odell Beckham. I want to address your Odell Beckham point. Because, yes, yours. The issue for him, he had a bad game, 10 catches and 100 yards, but no touchdowns. For Odell, he didn't get a chance to dance like Antonio. Containing him because he's that great. But I do think there is something there. Like Antonio Brown seems to me to be a more mature person. Right. And for those who would take him over Odell, which I still think is obviously the majority, I am in the minority, I'd rather have Odell. But I think that has a lot to do with it. Odell, it's not so much that people get in his head, I don't think. I think when he feels like there's an injustice going on, like they're missing calls because they don't like him, or the other guy's getting away with something, he lets that affect. That's the Ralph Transvan sensitivity right there. You need sensitivity. You know what I'm saying? I get where you're coming from. I'm not going to sing the words, but I get what you're saying. Here's the deal. Here's why you're wrong. Because exactly what you just said is a form of getting into his head, because they know they're going to frustrate him and they predict that he's going to react to it. Another thing that the Giants have a problem with, Victor Cruz wasn't even targeted yesterday. And he's upset. And he's upset about it. Before Sterling Shepard wasn't targeted. But Eli apologized to Sterling Shepard. But check this out. But that's right. Upset. So here's what we have this year. We got Eli Manning. Odell was upset early. Sterling Shepard was hurt last week, was upset last week. Victor Cruz is upset now, and we got a quarterback who's primarily throwing the football enough where there is simply no excuse not to target all the. There is no excuse why. There is no excuse why Victor Cruz has not been targeted once.
And if they ran the ball a little more and therefore had a little more success, none of this would be an issue.
You can't run the ball because they got a running back that runs just as fast as me and you.
All right.
Well, faster than me.
Giants still have a better record, though. They're also second in their division.
It doesn't matter.
Yes,
They're in
Steelers still
trouble.
give up a lot of yards. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time to get into the Steelers side of their
I understand
threat.
that. You can sit up there and say what you want. I got 6 days to mess with you.
Raider Nation has no case of the Mondays today. 10-2, a thing of beauty. Oakland came back from a 15-point deficit to defeat the Bills 38-24 and remain one game ahead of the Chiefs in the AFC West. Derek Carr is the first player in NFL history with 5 game-winning touchdown passes in the fourth quarter or overtime in a season. Stephen A., good Raiders or bad Bills?
Bad Bills. Here's the reality of the situation. Derek Carr and all of this other stuff, I'll leave that to you. We all know what I feel about the Raiders. This is Rex Ryan, whose signature is defense, who's got a ring as a coordinator, or at least on the defensive side of the ball, because it was really Marvin Lewis who was the coordinator at the time. What I'm saying to you is this. His signature is defense. He is a head coach in this league because of defense. And on top of it all, he turned around and hired his brother, who's also a defensive mind. They're both on the same team. 29 unanswered points in the last 18 minutes? Oh, inexcusable. Inexcusable. I don't care what anybody says. Let me tell you something right now. And I'll get into other coaches later and who needs to go, okay? I am a guy who was in New York and was a fan of those headlines that Rex Ryan was making.
Right.
I like the talking as long as you back it up. This year is going to mark the 6th consecutive year that man missed the playoffs as a head coach. How much time you got?
He's in the AFC
How much
East.
time you got? Listen, wait. That ain't it. That's his problem. Nobody told you to take the Jets job. Nobody told you to take the Buffalo Bills job. How come you didn't outbid Quinn? How come you didn't out-interview Quinn to get the Atlanta Falcons job? You didn't have to be up there against Brady. And even if you're going against Brady and Bill Belichick, there is something called a wild card. No. 29 unanswered points? I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything about Rex Ryan.
You're wrong.
29 unanswered.
Look,
I wouldn't have took the Atlanta job either.
You're wrong about this. This is good Raiders. It's really good Raiders. And let me tell you, I discounted their Super Bowl chances all year because I felt like people were a year too early on the bandwagon because they wanted it to be true, but the defense wasn't good enough. But then that bad man on defense has come around. They started using him better. Khalil Mack is
another strip set.
You can talk whatever you want.
But the
nothing
point is,
justifies 29
Let me tell you, Al, you'll like this as a boxing fan. Let me tell you who the Raiders remind me of at this point. Julio Cesar Chavez, senior, not junior, where you feel like you're doing good early against him sometimes, and he's putting in that body work, and by the end, he's running over you because he closes the show. Derek Carr and the Raiders are like a fighter built for 15 rounds. And this is the reason I thought they'd win this game. They're down 10-9 at the half, so it looks like a tough defensive struggle and the kind of game the Bills want. Then the Bills go up 24-9. Like, don't just gloss over that part. The Bills are playing really well. And at a certain point, Derek Carr, I mean, yeah, you got Toomer and Crabtree. They both caught touchdown passes in that comeback. And Murray ran 2 in. But Derek Carr, at a certain point, it kicks in. This is the time I got to take over the game. And that's not good Raiders. That's great Raiders. And they have been fantastic late in games this entire season.
Well, you know what, let me address your Rex Ryan issue. I wouldn't have took the Atlanta job because their defense was awful. At least give me something to work with. And that's why he took from the Jets to Buffalo, because they were still ranked a top 10 defense. So I understand that aspect of it. Let's give Derek Carr a little bit of love here. Derek Carr's been doing this all season. MVP candidate. 2 wide receivers that have been outstanding. Got a 3rd wide receiver, Seth Roberts, who continues to emerge in this offense. Lamar Murray, you're talking about Murray running the football, doing a great job. But let's give his offensive line a little bit of credit. They're probably the 2nd best offensive line in football, behind Dallas. And so if you have an offense like that now, it takes you just a little less time to get yourself going, and that's what we see from this Oakland Raiders. But their defense is starting to come around. Khalil Mack is a defensive player of the year candidate, but now you got Alden Smith coming back, you got Irvin starting to elevate his game. The secondary, which is their weak link, is starting to knock down passes and create some pressure to wide receivers. But Jack Del Rio is a guy that no one talks about when it comes to Coach of the Year. I know he's not the formidable name that people would bring up, but Jack Del Rio does a great job of showing confidence in his guys, going forward on fourth down, putting them in great position, and that's why we're starting to see this team start to rally behind him.
You two drive me crazy sometimes, especially you sometimes, because, I mean,
it's easy to talk about Buffalo and Rex Ryan.
Allow me to finish. You're Donovan McNabb.
You are so disrespectful.
Yeah, you're being disrespectful right now.
disrespectful.
Let me tell you something, you and Max Kellerman. You guys really get on my nerves right now. Let me tell y'all why. Derek Carr's a stud.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper.
Yep.
Michael Crabtree. I'll leave this answer. I just need a simple yes or no answer to this question, Molly Wood. Do any of them play defense?
No.
None of them. LaShawn McCoy has 130 yards on 17 carries. He averaged over 7 yards a carry. He's flat out balling. You got Tyrod Taylor, who's at least mobile as a quarterback. I'm not sitting there and knocking. I know that Oakland's offense is big time. I'm the one that sat up there and talked about them early as the major threat to the New England Patriots. That's not what I'm talking about here. And I know that Khalil Mack is the Mac Daddy. I get all of that. But damn, 29 unanswered points, and y'all don't even think about Rex Ryan? You got to be kidding me. 29 unanswered points.
So was it good? So what happened when they did it against Carolina?
When they went up 24-9,
I'm talking about yesterday's game.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
No, what I'm saying to you is this. No, what I'm saying to you, yes, but what I'm saying to you, Max, is this. Your defense is signature. You have a 24-9 lead. 29 unanswered points. Your defense couldn't stop them.
Bad checks.
Hold on, listen. If you delay it, move the chains, chew up the clock, give the ball to LaShawn.
Well, you're talking about offense now. You're talking about offense.
I'm saying to you, do something to quell the momentum of the Oakland Raiders because you have
Raiders
a lead.
Offense is momentum late in game.
You gotta find
no one's done it.
So in other words, let me get this. I just need to be clear. You two are perfectly fine with the fact that a guy who has missed the playoffs for 5 straight years, okay, whose signature is defense. That's why he got it. This is a guy that we call arguably the best offensive coordinator in football going into the season because of what he's been able to do with defenses, even though he don't know a damn thing about offense. You are perfectly fine with Rex Ryan allowing 29 unanswered points, and you got nothing to say about that?
Well,
nothing?
If that's the case, then we can talk about the defensive coordinator of Carolina, defensive coordinator of Denver Broncos.
We have.
Right. So
we have. How come you haven't said anything about Rex Ryan?
Because all we're talking about is defensive coordinators. Let's give a little credit to what we've seen from Derek Carr.
The reason
and his offense.
There's
a reason that we haven't said anything about Rex Ryan. Because the question is it good Raiders or bad Bills? So obviously, it has to be some of both. But if you want to put it to me point blank and I have to choose, that's good Raiders.
Good Raiders.
That's great Raiders.
Yeah.
If they haven't been doing this all year, if it was fluky or something like that, had the Bills shown to have a porous defense early in the game, if the Bills looked like they weren't ready for the challenge, if heading into the game, no one thought the Bills had a shot, that would be one thing. But heading into the game, upset alert, Bills at home, all these kind of things, the Bills come out, hold them to 9 points in the first half, build on a lead. They're up 24-9. Looks like they have it their way. And Derek Carr, as he's done all year, put the pedal to the metal. That's good Raiders.
But what I'm saying to you is this. They gave up 29 straight.
Yeah, but someone had to score those points.
Somebody got to score.
Look, who else did they do that to this year? Who?
I don't know about
29, but they've come back to 18. They've come back.
Who did the Raiders drop 29 straight unanswered to this year? Anybody? Anybody got anybody?
Yeah, but they've come
back. They've come back for more than
I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm saying, how do y'all not bring up Rex Ryan? My God, I want to work for y'all. I'll have a job for the rest of my life with y'all.
If you're Derek Carr, you want to work for me, sure.
If you work with the Rams,
you gotta go. You gotta go there. You gotta go, man. You gotta go.
10-2, no joke. Donovan, always good to see you.
Great to have you.
I want to work for them, Molly. I want to work for them. Clearly, mediocrity doesn't matter.
You already work for me. What are you
Coming up, famous Jameis leads Tampa Bay to another win on Sunday. So how worried should the South Falcons be about the Red Hot Bucks? We'll get into that next. And the Redskins lay an egg in the desert to the underachieving Cards. So do these guys have similar feelings as Washington's head coach?
I don't like the way we came out. I don't like the way they had 16-play drive right down our throat to start the game. I don't like the way our offense answered with 2 penalties on the first drive and having a punt. That's not the way we want to come out of a football game getting ready for a good team on the road.